Cecily Barker was born and raised in Albuquerque and has served APD for the last 2 decades. After attending college out of state, she returned to Albuquerque and joined APD in 2004, beginning a career that has taken her several roles in patrol and investigations. Prior to being named chief, she also served in several roles at the executive level. Chief Barker became interim police chief in January of 2026 and was subsequently appointed and unanimously confirmed as Albuquerque's first woman to serve as APD chief. She holds an associate degree in criminal justice, a bachelor's degree in justice administration, and has completed several executive police leadership trainings. Chief Barker remains committed to addressing public safety through technology and a data-driven approach, strengthening community engagement and trust, accountability, and transparency.
Good afternoon, everybody. I just want to take a moment to thank you for the opportunity to come and talk with such an amazing group. I was looking at just videos to get an idea of who I would be speaking to, even though I do have some experience working as a lieutenant over OCU, and what I really appreciated is seeing how many people in this group have been born and raised in Albuquerque and came up through the ranks like in hospitality, and I think that's really cool. Born and raised in Albuquerque, live on the west side, and I'm truly devoted to continuing to help our community grow. I love Albuquerque and its culture. I don't want to spend the day talking about myself. I want to talk about what we're doing as a police department to make things better in our community and specifically this group. As I go and talk at community meetings, one thing that I'm very proud to say is that crime stats show that we are doing very well. And what I mean by that, and it will be on the next slide. So I'm going to go forward a slide and come back. But if we're looking at data, we're going to see that auto theft is down 36% this year. Violent crime is down 12%. Commercial burglary 22%. And property crime 18%. The only increase that we've seen citywide is in aggravated assault. Now, I'm going to go back a slide and tell you, I can stand up here and say how great we're doing as a city, and we are. But I also recognize the perception of crime in Albuquerque. Born and raised here, I've seen the difference from when I was in high school to now. I have a 17-year-old who is a senior, and there are certain parts of the city that I wouldn't feel comfortable with her going to by herself. And that's the reality. And so that's something as a police department that we want to address. Last fall, I was the deputy chief over the Field Services Bureau, and what I really wanted to see is our officers getting out in the community and making those connections again. So not just patrolling an area command, the downtown, but actually getting out of their cars, making contact with business owners, and listening to what is actually happening in the neighborhoods. And I wanted it to go even further than that, because sometimes as officers, we get so busy that we might go in and say, hey, what's going on? And a business owner might say, well, we have this group of people who are hanging out, causing damage and concerns, and the officers will make an arrest and address it, but that follow-up never comes back, right? And so a business owner or a community member might think, well, I don't know, the police came, but I don't know whatever came of that. And so what I wanted to do was close that loop. And I really have to give credit to Commander Sudler in the Northeast Area Command, because she took that initiative a step further, and she started something that is called Adopt a Business. And so I'm not here to tell you that you have to reach out and tell us that you want us to communicate with you, and that's the only way that it's going to happen. But what I am here to say is that Adopt a Business is doing very, very well. And what we have asked community members and business owners to do is reach out if you're interested. And we have an officer who gets assigned to your business. And so what they do is make contact with the employees and the business owners and get an idea of what they're seeing. So for example, if you have a hotel in the Valley Area Command, and you're continuing to see the same group come, whether it's just loiter, cause problems in the area, we want you to be able to go direct with an officer who works that area and knows what's happening. And that officer can work with ACS and all of the other city resources to make sure that we're addressing those issues. And again, it extends further than just making that initial contact, but it's going back out, being visible in the community, and letting people know that we're there. It goes beyond also just making an arrest. I think everybody in this group likely knows that we have, an unhoused population in open air drug use. And I can tell you that our police department is interested in illegal drugs and making arrests for people using them. But we work very closely with ACS to ensure that we're also trying to provide resources and other outlets for those who are struggling with addiction. And so that's a very big balance that we're trying to work with. One thing that we're also doing is our PSA program. And so those are the public service aides. They're about 18 to 21 years old typically, and we want to see them eventually join the police academy, but we have them being able to take calls for service, whether that's a traffic accident or take a report for criminal damage where there's not an offender, and we're also using them for visibility. So as we know, we have the state fair coming up. That's going to bring a lot of tourism to the city, as well as Balloon Fiesta. And what we want to do, again, is high visibility, have our PSAs and our officers out, not just in their vehicles, but on foot patrol, on bikes, and being visible. And not just to address crime, but to talk to the community and get an idea of what's going on. I kind of already went over this slide as far as the fall operations and partner engagement. I really, really briefly want to also just talk about our homicides that we've seen in the city. So our homicides year to date are 38 versus 47 last year. So we have seen a decrease in homicides. But the reason I want to bring it up too is because of the work that our detectives are doing and the success that we're seeing with technology. So 13 of our homicides, most recent homicides, were solved due to technology, specifically our license plate readers. I know that there is a lot of concern in the community, and I want you to know that I recognize that. Our only interest in license plate readers is specific to crime. And we have put accountability measures in place that when an officer is looking up a license plate, they have to put a case number and a specific reason as to why they're looking at that license plate. We also have an auditing system in place, and if that is not followed, then that is taken away from the officer. And we worked very closely with the ACLU when we put this in place because we know that there are obviously concerns over privacy, right? But we also recognize and want the community to know how much technology has helped us in solving crime. Another factor that we use is drones, and so we have the first responder drone program. And as you know, we receive thousands of calls for service, and what we're able to do is, if it's a non-priority call, dispatch a drone remotely and have it respond to the area. So for an example, if there's a down and out in a parking lot and someone calls it in and says there's an individual, they're passed out, we don't know what's going on, we can send the drone there, and the pilot can tell the officers remotely what they see. Sometimes the drone goes and that person has cleared, and then that allows us to put those officers back in service and not have to respond. There have been several calls where an individual has a firearm and the drone gets there first, and the pilot is able to tell the officers arriving on scene, the individual has a gun, this is what he's wearing, this is where he put it. And we've seen that be able to help our officers safely get people in custody. And so that's some of the technology things that we have done and that we have seen success in. I know there's a lot of questions around that. I really think it's important for this group just to hear how we're using that. I've had questions where people have asked me, well, are you giving our data to retail companies or stores? Absolutely not. And I just also have to say the Albuquerque Police Department does not use Flock. And so that's not... that's not a company that we're using. And we are very, very serious about accountability as far as how we're using technology and data. Before we go to this video, I just briefly want to talk about what we're doing for our fall operations, like I said, with the State Fair and balloons coming up. So you're going to see more visibility. Like I said, that's your officers in uniform, on bike, patrol, and walking. But we also have our investigative unit. So you're going to have bait cars in parking lots. You're going to have bait property in those bait cars. And those are monitored 24/7 from our real-time crime center. Our auto theft unit has seen great success as far as the bait cars go. And then not only on top of that technology, we have officers both in uniform and not in uniform patrolling parking lots and making sure that, one, there's high visibility, and then we have our undercovers driving around and calling out suspicious information. One thing that we ask the community to do is communicate to us what you're seeing. I think for a period of time, and still sometimes now, we hear, well, the cops never show up, why would I call? And I would encourage you to please, please call us, because if you don't, we don't know what's happening. I'm not going to stand here and tell you that we're perfect, but I will tell you, if you say, I called you and you never showed up and you give me a case number, I will follow up on that. My officers know that. You can ask COS Bernard. He gets all of those from me where I say, hey, someone called 911. They said this is how long it took. Let's look into that and let's see what we can do better, or if that's completely what happened. I'm a trust but verify chief. So I trust my officers to do what's right, but I'm going to verify that we're doing what's right. And that's my commitment to you in the community. I'm going to show this video. The mayor shared it at State of the City over the weekend, but it's really how ACS is being used to help the Albuquerque Police Department and the city in our efforts to address the perception of crime and crime throughout the city. And this is specific to Old Town. Go ahead, Rebecca.
I own Outpost 1706 Tap Room here in Plaza Don Luis. I manage Plaza Don Luis, and I have an Airbnb in Plaza Don Luis, so got a big footprint involvement in Old Town. In 1992, I started my career with the New Mexico State Police, and I worked all the way through the ranks. In 2013, I was appointed chief, and I was a chief for 5.5 years of the state police. So I had a wonderful career. I just love business, and I just love Albuquerque. I cannot make beer. I can certainly sell it. I actually not only opened a business, I actually moved to Old Town. I live in Old Town. So I completely immersed myself in this micro community in Albuquerque. And what I noticed first off is we had a large population that was suffering from a mental illness and addiction, and they were using Old Town as a refuge. A lot of pressure was put on the city, the APD and the resources, but unfortunately they weren't getting the best information to act and use those resources. So the first step for us was understanding what's out there, and there is a lot of resources provided by the city. One good example would be ACS. They're a resource that I knew very little about. I knew the director, Jody, and I decided to reach out. And we initially had meetings regarding the population in Old Town that I felt at first we were frustrated as business owners and merchants and property owners of what do we do with the same reoccurring people we see that need help that just don't know how to get it or can't. And I sat down with ACS, a group of us, and we really mapped out a plan and really got results as far as them being able to come out and identify folks, and also to managing the expectations of everybody in Old Town of what we can expect when the city does respond. And I think now, if you fast forward 5 years later, a lot of that's been negated. And I think that's through the hard work of not only the folks in Old Town, but the commitment by the city, Mayor Keller, and the folks that work for him, ACS, APD, Metro Security Division, all working together to actually make an impact. I do feel safer. I think the majority of residents do, and the businesses do. There's always room for improvement, but what's nice is this system, the folks coming in and out of here, there's a flow to it. And I believe that the city is very responsive in understanding that and then responding to it, especially when we're providing the best information we can and working with them. So we've seen better data-driven results based off of our interactions with the city since probably 2022, 2023. It's gotten a lot better.
Pete would tell you the same thing, that he was probably one of our biggest critics. And so to see him say that something is working in Old Town is a huge success for the Valley Area Command and the work that Commander Sanchez has put in over there. I also think that Pete did a fantastic job of just explaining what we're doing as a city. Crime and the perception of crime is not just a police problem, right? There are, unfortunately, unhoused community, and we see a lot of addiction, and ACS really plays an important role in helping us to address those issues and, again, provide resources. And I just real quickly want to touch on as well a new program that we've started as the city with our judges, where every Friday there is essentially a court where the unhoused population can go and address any citations or previous arrests or warrants that have gone out for them. And the point of that is we don't want to continue just this cycle of cite, arrest, come back out, cite, arrest, come back out. And what we have seen, it's only been going on for the last 4 weeks, but we have seen those who have shown up are at a point where they're actually showing up to court and they're in the right mental state to be able to make decisions. And so we're very hopeful that we will see some success with this. And so Jody's not here. I'm sure most of you know Jody, the director of ACS. She's absolutely amazing, her and her team. And I just have to give a shout out to her and her team's work. Oh, that's going to play again. There we go. We're on questions and answers. I enjoy coming up and talking about what we're doing, but what's most important for me is to hear from the community and what we can do better. And so that's what I'm here for, is to listen to you and answer any questions. And so I stand for any questions that you might have, and I thank you again for the opportunity to be here today.
I think Robert has a question.
So it's not necessarily a question, but on the adoptive business, I just want to say thank you for coming up with that. The officer has actually reached out. They've stopped and talked to our night auditors, so they're coming in over the night. And so I just want to say thank you for that, because we've seen a tremendous change just in the traffic around our area. So thank you for coming up with that.
That's great. Thank you.
I actually have one. Just very quickly, thank you very much for coming out and joining us today. You're aware, abundantly aware, I'm sure, and we are too. We house our guests from out of town. And sometimes when we make a call and we don't get an answer immediately or no one shows up, I would like for somehow to put us a little higher at the level. I know, obviously, murders and other issues are more important, but we're not just a store. We're just not a business. We are a business that houses a couple hundred guests sometimes. And this is the gift that keeps on giving that troubles Albuquerque, that perception of safety. And so if your officers can just think about that a little bit. And yes, we need to make sure they prioritize their actions. But somehow we need to make sure that there's a little extra understanding of who we are and what we do. I know that sounds kind of egotistical, but we bring in millions of dollars into the city, and it's the gift that keeps on giving from a tax dollar perspective. It's more dollars to our citizens, more dollars to you for your budget, because we're bringing in all these extra dollars into the city, outside dollars. So what can you do to help reinforce that? I will tell you that I'm a downtown fanatic. I was at the Hyatt when it was the Hyatt downtown for many years, the DoubleTree downtown. But we have challenges all over the city, whether it's Uptown or Manal or Old Town. And it's always a challenge. And we get frustrated when we have guests in our hotel and some guy is threatening someone, is yelling and screaming in the middle of the lobby, and we can't do anything about it. That really is a problem for us. And I love the bike patrol. I don't know if I saw a picture, if that's still active.
It is.
I like the fact that you're adding the junior folks, the public safety folks. Anything you could do to make it a force multiplier, we know is really important and very helpful. We know you can't always get everybody out there. So what can you do, and what are you doing differently than previous chiefs to make a difference for us?
So something doing differently or just really reinforcing is our community outreach and being visible out in the community. And again, it goes further than just driving by in a marked patrol vehicle. It's like I said, getting out of the vehicle, trying to find out, who's working, whether that's on the night shift or the day shift, and finding out what issues are going on, addressing them, and then having that follow up coming back. I think communication is key. Throughout my entire career, if there's one thing I can say where disagreements come from, it's communication. We can all agree to disagree, but I have to communicate, what we're doing. Bike patrol is still a thing, especially, I mentioned with the state fair and balloons coming up, we want to see officers on bike patrol. We don't want tourists or even our own community to think that police are only in the area because there is crime. We want people to feel comfortable coming up to talk to officers, and I think and I see that when we have officers on bikes or horse-mounted patrol, that people feel more comfortable coming and having those conversations. And so visibility is a big thing for me. And then, Mayor Keller has really pushed this as well. And it's just, we have to do better for our community. And so for my officers, I think that I've made it very clear. Every call we respond to might seem very minor to us. We're responding to 10 to 15 calls a day, but it's likely the worst situation that person is facing that day, that week, that month, right? And so to try and look at every call as though it's your family member or as though you were the person experiencing it, no matter how minor it might be to us, it's not minor to the person who called it in. And I think that for me, just really, really reinforcing that. We are here to serve the community.
Chief, I just wanted to say thank you for the approach you've taken personally since you've come in. You talked about being available and you've followed up. In regards to emails and willingness, to also connect us to the right people within your team. So I first wanted to start with appreciation for that. Two, I'm going to run two scenarios, and I would just love for you to tell us. So you talked about perception of safety, and I do think we have a role to play in changing the narrative for Albuquerque. We absolutely do. So we're seeing crime reduced, but nobody is feeling any different. So what role can we play as a hospitality community to try to help change the narrative for Albuquerque? I'm gonna ask kind of a three-part question. So then I'm gonna give you two scenarios. Someone's checking into a hotel and they ask, oh my gosh, I hear terrible things about Albuquerque. Should I even go out tonight? Should I just stay here? Should I just hunker down? That's one scenario. Give us kind of the starting point for that. Two, a meeting planner who is online, who's considering actively, a meeting planner or someone from the association that's considering Albuquerque for a meeting, and they go on to Google, and they are offered all of our local, a number of news stories, things that are running through the carousel, and all of a sudden, where they're super excited about Albuquerque, it changes. And oh my gosh, I just saw your rankings. I just saw where Albuquerque is, the safety. Are my attendees going to even be safe if they come here? If you could answer those, just give us some answers, that'd be great.
Absolutely. I'm going to see if I can frame this correctly. With it making sense. So born and raised in Albuquerque, and sometimes we joke like, oh man, Albuquerque's just so bad, it's gotten so bad. My husband is not from Albuquerque, and when he says, oh man, Albuquerque's so bad, I get defensive right away, and I'm like, excuse you, Albuquerque is great, why are you talking about Albuquerque? But to your point, we are responsible for saying what is good about Albuquerque. I think social media is great. It gives us an opportunity to show how great Albuquerque is, but there are also some people who like to post all the bad about Albuquerque. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, because there is bad that happens. That's the reality, right? But it gets all the likes and all the focus. And so when we know that something is going good in Albuquerque, it's our responsibility to make sure we get that message out. I know at different community meetings I've been asked, well, how can we share that information? And I have to give kudos to Rebecca and Will. Will takes amazing pictures. He's been doing such a good job for our department, and Rebecca, but getting the information out on the good stories. I'm going to use officer-involved shootings as an example. We recognize that we have had 8 this year, and we don't downplay that at all. But there are so many other calls that we've had where we have de-escalated situations with people with firearms, but those don't get highlighted. And so what we're trying to do better as an agency is to highlight that. And we would ask if you have an experience in Albuquerque, whether it's with the police department or ACS or just communication out and about, that you share that and be vocal about what is good in Albuquerque. I think we can find the balance of being honest, but not saying, yeah, definitely don't go out after midnight. Nothing good happens. Sometimes that's true. But that being said, I think that we can be honest and true about what a concern can be, but we can also say, hey, but if you go here, it's great, and I've had a good time there, and this is what I've seen. And so I would ask that you all help to communicate when you see things that are good as well.
A big meeting attendee had a concern about coming here. Would you be willing to talk to them and say, bring your meeting to Albuquerque?
I would. I know that we've talked with several members in this group when we have big groups coming, like APS was at the convention center a couple of weeks ago, maybe 2 weeks ago. But our police department's very aware of that, and we want to keep the community safe too. So I do think it's important to say, look, like, our police department is willing to work with us and ensure that there's safety as well. And I think having that communication is key. Yes, ma'am.
You may have touched on this. I stepped out. Recruitment. What are your recruitment efforts? We're in the downtown corridor, and we're right off Central and Broadway. Love that's our hotel, but we do see an increase in transients, especially coming with the Balloon Fiesta and the State Fair. What are your recruitment efforts? I heard technology. I heard social media. All good things. What are you going to go to do to get boots on the ground again? I love the old 80s boots on the ground.
The boots on the ground. I love it.
So just wanted to encourage our police department to consider that, and what are the efforts for recruitment?
Absolutely. So if you look across the country, recruitment is down. But what I can say about Albuquerque is we are doing pretty well in comparison to other agencies, to include New Mexico State Police and Bernalillo County. And I can say that because I sit on panels for public safety, and I hear, what they're doing. We're all looking for the same people. We're trying to poach from other agencies within the state. What I can say is that for the last several years, we've had at or above 100 officers join our department by the end of each year. That being said, we do have retirements, resignations, and stuff like that, and so that balances out. My priority is having officers in uniform, boots on the ground, right? Detectives are extremely important. They have a very important role. My heart is in the field. Those are the officers that are showing up to your house, to your business, to take calls for service. And I'm proud to say at the officers bid, so once a year the officers bid to area commands, and we bid 43 more officers this year than we did the year prior. And so that's just for field services, uniformed officers. And so that's always on our mind, and we're always looking at what we can do to recruit more people from across the country as well.
So APD Connect has historically been our platform that our industry has been able to communicate with APD and make sure that everyone's aware of situations that are going on. We feel that over the years, the platform's outdated, and we wanted to see it revamped. This organization has taken the initiative of really help be the backbone of that. Where do you see that platform evolve, or what do you see it evolving into?
So I have talked with DC Vega extensively about how we're going to continue to move forward. I know after COVID, things, I don't want to say got a little quiet, but they fell off a little bit. And so that is a priority for us. Jeff Bernard, my chief of staff, he oversaw OCU for quite some time. And I think that we should sit down and talk about what's best for business owners as well as the police department and how that communication can get better.
Thank you.
We were talking at the board meeting about the ability to file electronically. I don't know if it's changed or not, but the last time I did it, I've been out of being a GM for a few years now, but it was so long, it was so penurious. I had to put in my home address, but it was just crazy. And I just wanted to report something electronically because no one was going to come to the hotel, but I wanted to be quick and fast. And I'm going, geez, this takes forever to do. How about some quick, fast, immediate things that allows this community to report to you as quickly as possible? We do have a WhatsApp, and some of your folks are on there, I guess. Maybe, I don't know if legally or illegally, but that's really helped, that quick, electronic. situation.
Yes.
So what can we do to reduce the bureaucracy and improve communication to you guys so you could have actionable items?
That is absolutely a great question. I can tell you, Mayor Keller has made this a priority for his administration, for us to look at our processes and how we can make that better. And so that's a prime example. We're asking people to call and make a report, but if it's taking you 20 minutes to get through stuff that does not seem important, like, we would love to hear that feedback so we can work on it. Traffic accidents, as an example, if you go, well, hopefully it's fixed now, but if you, as of a couple weeks ago, if you logged on to APD online, it would say file a traffic report online, and if you click that link, it would say you can't file a traffic report online. And so there are things like that that we have to do better, and we recognize that, and so that's something we're actively working on. And as a community, you might have ideas that just haven't come to our mind, and so if you have an idea of something we can do to improve, we would love to hear that.
Hi, my name is Damien. So with the technology so advanced, is there a way where somebody could text 911 in specific and say, hey, I'm in distress, I'm at the front desk at this location? Is there anything like that?
We're not there yet. We are looking at different types of AI. Obviously, there are concerns about, what that might look like, but we are looking at every technology advancement to try and improve that process. I can tell you that I've had the opportunity to travel across the country, and I'm proud to say that our police department is far ahead of many, if not most, of the agencies across the country. But, to answer your question, we're always looking at what we can do to expedite things.
Budget item that you need to have, but you're not getting it because you don't have enough money. I know that's a big ask, but is there an area that we could help support and push you towards CapEx or some other product that will help you do your job better?
Budget's a hot topic. Technology is the biggest thing for our police department. Technology and making sure we have enough patrol units for our officers. But that's really, as far as budget goes, like what we're seeing.
Just one question. With the DOJ time pretty much over at this point, how has that affected your ability to allocate resources, morale, et cetera? I know that was a big issue.
We have seen morale increase a lot. One thing I have made clear as the chief, both to the community and my officers, is accountability is still a huge, important, key piece for me. But when we're talking about bureaucracy and the amount of time on reports and stuff, we're really trying to take a lot of that administrative work away from our officers and let them be police again and go out and do proactive patrol. That being said, again, the ability to travel across the country and sit on panels with other departments in the state, I'm very proud of where we're at as a department when it comes to policies and the implementation of those policies. We have agencies from across the country who will reach out to us and say, hey, what's your policy on this? Because they know that we're reviewing those every 6 months and we're updating them as necessary. Officers are excited to get back to work, but we do have to make sure that we keep that accountability piece in place.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.